The stars had never been kind to humanity. 300 years had passed since the first alien ship landed on Earth. 300 years of smiling faces and hidden knives. 300 years of waiting. Admiral Tyo Park stood in a room carved deep beneath the moon's gray surface. The walls were cold stone and metal. Above him, 1 billion humans lived their normal lives, unaware of the secrets buried below their feet. Around him sat the 12 members of the United Earth Council, the true leaders of mankind. "They have made their decision," Tyo said. His voice was calm, but his hands were tight fists at his sides. "The Galactic Assembly has voted. 17 species agreed. Earth will become a protected reserve." The words hung in the air like poison. Protected reserve. It sounded gentle. It sounded caring. But everyone in that room knew what it truly meant. Humanity would lose control of its own solar system. Alien governors would manage human populations. Earth would become a zoo, and its people would become animals on display. Councilwoman Yuna Choi was the oldest person in the room. She had seen 90 winters on Earth before moving to the moon. Her hair was white as snow, her back bent with age, but her eyes burned with a fire that time could not touch. She rose slowly from her chair. "How long do we have?" she asked. 6 months, Tyo replied. "The assembly fleet will arrive to enforce the partition. 5,000 warships from 12 different species." A young councilman slammed his hand on the table. "Then we fight. We cannot simply surrender." Tyo shook his head. "Our public fleet has 47 ships. Their smallest vessel could destroy our entire force in minutes. Fighting openly would be suicide." Silence filled the room. The weight of 3 centuries pressed down on every shoulder. For 300 years, humanity had played the role of the weak newcomer. They had bowed their heads. They had accepted insults with smiles. They had let every alien species believe that humans were slow learners, primitive creatures who could barely travel between planets. It was all a lie. Yuna Choi walked to the center of the room. Her steps were slow but steady. She looked at each council member in turn, her ancient eyes carrying memories of a plan that began before most of them were born. "My grandmother was 20 years old when the first aliens came," Yuna said softly. She watched them smile and promise friendship. She watched them divide our world's resources in secret meetings. She understood, even then, that the galaxy was not a community. It was a hunting ground, and we were the prey. She paused, letting her words sink deep. "My grandmother was also there when the first secret shipyard was built in the Orc cloud. She gave her life to that project. So did my mother. So did I. 3 generations of my family have worked in the shadows, and we are not alone. Millions of humans have lived and died in secret, building something the galaxy has never seen." Yuna turned to Tyo and nodded. The Admiral pressed a button on the table. The lights dimmed. A hologram appeared in the center of the room, showing a shape so massive that the human mind struggled to understand it. It was a ship. But calling it a ship was like calling an ocean a puddle. The vessel was the size of a small planet, covered in weapons that could tear holes in the fabric of space itself. Its engines burned with the power of 100 suns. Its shields could absorb the fire of entire fleets without a scratch. "This is the Baekdu," Tyo said. "Named after the sacred mountain of Korea. It is the flagship of Project Prometheus." The hologram shifted, pulling back to reveal not 1 ship, but 12. 12 planet-sized warships, hidden in the darkest corners of the solar system, waiting in perfect silence for this moment. "For 270 years, we have been building in secret," Tyo continued. "Every piece of weak technology we showed the galaxy was a performance. Every failed experiment was a lie. While the aliens laughed at our primitive rockets, we were constructing weapons they cannot imagine. The young councilman who had demanded war now sat with his mouth open, unable to speak. Others wept silently. Some laughed with joy and disbelief, but Yuna Choi did not smile. She knew the cost of this moment. She knew the workers who had spent their entire lives in the cold darkness of space, never seeing Earth's blue sky. She knew the families torn apart by secrecy. She knew the deaths, the sacrifices, the silent graves floating in the void between stars. "This is not a gift," she said, her voice cutting through the noise. "This is a debt, paid in blood and years by people whose names we will never know. We must use this power wisely, or their sacrifice means nothing." Taiho straightened his back. "The order must come from this council. Once given, it cannot be taken back. The galaxy will learn the truth about humanity. They will fear us. They will hate us. There will be no more hiding." Yuna looked at the hologram, at the massive ships that represented humanity's greatest secret and greatest hope. She thought of her grandmother, who had dreamed of this day. She thought of her mother, who had believed in it. She thought of all the children who would grow up in a galaxy that no longer saw humans as prey. "Activate Project Prometheus," she said. "Show them what we really are." In the frozen depths beyond Pluto, 12 giants opened their eyes. Their engines lit up the darkness like newborn stars. After centuries of silence, humanity was ready to speak, and the galaxy would listen. Dr. Minji Han sat alone in her small room aboard the construction platform Silent Hammer. The walls were gray metal. The air smelled of recycled oxygen and machine oil. Through a tiny window, she could see the skeleton of the Baekdu, its frame stretching across the darkness like the bones of a sleeping giant. She opened her personal log and began to speak. It was a habit she had kept for 40 years. Someday, she hoped, someone would hear these words and understand what humanity had done in the shadows. "Day 14,612, she said softly. "The main power core is complete. We are on schedule. My husband says we might finish within the decade. I hope he is right. I am getting old, and I would like to see Earth one more time before I die." Minji closed the log and leaned back in her chair. Memories floated through her mind like leaves on water. She remembered the day she first learned the truth about humanity's plan. She was 25 years old, a young scientist with big dreams. A government agent had come to her office and asked a simple question. Would she give her life for the future of her species? She had said yes without hesitation. She did not know then what that promise would cost her. The door opened. Her husband, Sunwoo Lee, stepped inside. His hair was gray now, his face lined with years of hard work. But his smile was still the same smile that had made her fall in love with him half a century ago. "The gravity generators are online," he said, sitting beside her. Hannah did the final adjustments herself. "Our daughter is brilliant." Minji nodded. Hannah was their only child, born aboard this very station 32 years ago. She had never breathed fresh air. She had never felt rain on her skin. She had never seen a sunset or walked through a forest. Everything Hannah knew about Earth came from old videos and her parents. Stories. It was the same for thousands of children born in the hidden stations. They were called the Void Generation, humans who had never touched their home planet. They worked beside their parents, building ships they might never see completed, fighting for a world they had never known. "Do you think she understands why we do this?" Minji asked quietly. Sunwoo took her hand. "She understands better than we did at her age. She knows what the galaxy is like. She knows what will happen to Earth if we fail." The history was burned into every worker's mind. 50 years after first contact, human spies had stolen files from the Galactic Assembly. Those files contained the truth. The aliens were not friends. They were predators. They had already divided Earth's resources among themselves. They had already planned to reduce human population to manageable numbers. They had already chosen which cities would be preserved as museums and which would be erased. When Earth's leaders saw those files, they understood that open war was impossible. The aliens were too strong. Their technology was too advanced. A direct fight would end in humanity's complete destruction within days. So they chose a different path. They would hide. They would pretend. They would let the galaxy believe that humans were weak and stupid, while secretly building the greatest weapons ever created. The plan required sacrifice beyond imagination. Entire generations would live and die in secret. Families would be separated forever. Workers would spend their lives in darkness, far from the sun, knowing they might never see the results of their labor. But they did it anyway, because they believed in the future. Minji remembered the early days of construction. The first mining ships, disguised as failed colony missions. The first factory stations, hidden inside gas giant storms where no alien sensor could reach. The first workers, who kissed their families goodbye and disappeared into the void, officially listed as dead. Her own parents were among those first workers. She had been 10 years old when they left. She never saw them again. Years later, she learned that they had died building the foundation of the Space Orcs, the second great warship. Their bodies were buried in space, unmarked and forgotten by everyone except the few who knew the truth. Now she was continuing their work. And someday, Hana would continue hers. A knock came at the door. Hana Lee entered, wearing the simple uniform of a senior engineer. She looked like her mother, with the same sharp eyes and the same determined jaw. But she had her father's calm manner and steady hands. "The council has sent a message," Hana said. Her voice was controlled, but Minji could see the excitement burning beneath the surface. "Project Prometheus is active. We have 6 months to complete final preparations." Minji felt her heart stop for a moment. She had waited her entire life for those words. Her parents had waited. Her grandparents had waited. Generations of silent workers had waited. "Then we have work to do," Sunwoo said, standing up. "No more waiting. No more hiding. It ends now." Hana nodded. "I have one request, Mother. When the Baekdu is ready, I want to see Earth. Just once. Even if only for a minute." Minji pulled her daughter into a tight embrace. Tears ran down her weathered cheeks. "You will see it," she whispered. "You will walk on green grass and feel the wind on your face. I promise you. That is why we built these ships. That is why we gave everything." Outside the small window, thousands of workers moved across the Baekdu's hull like ants on a mountain. Welding torches flashed in the darkness. Transport ships carried materials from hidden mines across the solar system. The greatest secret in human history was about to be revealed. 300 years of lies. 300 years of patience. 300 years of silent sacrifice. The wait was finally over. Ambassador Do-Yoon Kang walked through the great hall of the Galactic Assembly. The chamber was enormous, stretching for kilometers in every direction. Seats rose like mountains on all sides, filled with representatives from 1,000 different species. Some had scales. Some had feathers. Some were made of pure light. Some had no physical form at all. And all of them looked down at the small human with contempt. Do-Hyun kept his head bowed. His steps were slow and humble. His face showed nothing but respect and submission. He had practiced this performance for 20 years. He was very good at it. Inside, his heart burned with cold fire. High Arbiter Velmos floated at the center of the chamber, a being made of crystalline light that shifted colors as it spoke. Its voice echoed through the hall like thunder. "The matter of Earth is now decided," Velmos announced. "The human solar system will be partitioned according to assembly law. The Elthari Dominion will control the outer planets. The Korvax Federation will manage the asteroid belt. Earth itself will become a protected cultural reserve under assembly supervision. Doyun knelt on the cold floor. Around him, he could hear alien laughter. Some species made clicking sounds. Others hummed with amusement. A few simply stared with what might have been pity. Human representative, Vamos continued. Do you accept the judgment of this assembly? Dohyun looked up with empty eyes. The people of Earth thank the assembly for their wisdom and protection. We are grateful for your guidance. More laughter filled the chamber. A Yelthari commander, a massive creature covered in armored plates, leaned forward in his seat. Look at them, the Yelthari said loudly. 300 years among the stars, and they still crawl on their knees. Perhaps we should keep some as pets. The hall erupted in amusement. Dahyun remained still, his face a perfect mask of humble acceptance. But deep in his mind, he was counting seconds. 300 years of insults. 300 years of humiliation. 300 years of playing the fool while humanity built its revenge in the darkness. The count reached 0. Dohyun pressed a small button hidden in his sleeve. Across the galaxy, in communication stations and network hubs and data centers, human sleeper agents received the signal. Backdoor programs installed over centuries activated simultaneously. Every major alien communication system flickered for just a moment, and 12 planet-sized warships began their journey from hidden space to real space. Far from the assembly. Aboard the flagship Baekdu, Commander Yoon Ji-yoon stood on the bridge. She was a tall woman with short black hair and eyes that had seen too much death. Behind her, 12,000 crew members waited at their stations. The bridge was larger than most cities, filled with holographic displays showing the ship's impossible systems. Transition complete, her navigation officer reported. We have arrived at the Yelthari throne world. Yoonji looked at the display. Below them hung a planet covered in cities and military bases. Millions of Yelthari lived on that world, secure in their belief that they were the greatest warriors in the galaxy. They had no idea what was above them. Report from all vessels, Yoonji ordered, one by one. The other ships reported their positions. The Ziorak hung above the Korvax homeworld. The Holosan loomed over the capital of the Trade Consortium. The Jiri, the Tebek, the Ode, all 12 vessels had appeared simultaneously in orbit around the most powerful worlds in the galaxy. No warnings. No negotiations. Just 12 mountains of metal and fire, appearing from nowhere like angry gods. Open all channels, Yoonji said. Broadcast on every frequency. The communication officer nodded. Channels open, Commander. The entire galaxy is listening. Yoonji straightened her back and spoke clearly. This is Commander Yoon Ji-yoon of the Earth vessel Baekdu. For 300 years, humanity has watched and waited. We have endured your insults. We have suffered your contempt. We have let you believe we were weak because we needed time to prepare for this moment. She paused, letting the words travel across the stars. That time is over. Look above your worlds. See what humanity has built in silence. These vessels are not a threat. They are a promise. We do not seek war. We do not seek revenge. We only seek the right to exist as equals. Nothing more. Nothing less. In the Galactic Assembly, every display screen showed the same image. The Baekdu hanging in space, its hull covered in weapons that defied known science. The laughter had stopped. The Yelthari commander's face had turned pale. High Arbiter Velmos flickered with colors that had no name. Dayan Kang slowly rose to his feet. He was no longer bowing. He was no longer humble. He stood straight and tall, looking at the assembly with eyes that burned like stars. The people of Earth have reconsidered your offer, he said, his voice cutting through the silence like a blade. We decline. No one moved. No one spoke. The greatest powers in the galaxy stared at the small human who had just changed everything. Dahyun smiled. It was not a kind smile. It was the smile of a species that had been pushed too far, that had endured too much, that had finally revealed its true face. "Perhaps," he said softly, "you should have treated us better." He turned and walked out of the chamber, his footsteps echoing in the perfect silence. Behind him, 1,000 species began to understand the terrible truth. They had underestimated humanity, and that mistake might cost them everything. The Yelthari Dominion had ruled their corner of the galaxy for 10,000 years. They had conquered 100 species. They had never lost a war. Their pride was as vast as their empire, and that pride would not allow them to accept what had happened. Supreme Commander Varth stood on the bridge of his flagship, staring at the impossible shape hanging above his homeworld. The human vessel was larger than some moons. Its weapons glowed with energy readings that his sensors could not understand. His scientists told him the ship should not exist. The power required to move something that size would drain a star. But there it was, real, waiting. "All fleets form attack formation," Varth commanded. His voice was steady, but his hands trembled slightly. "We are Yelthari. We do not bow to anyone. We will destroy this human trick and burn their pathetic planet to ash." 1,000 warships gathered around the Yelthari flagship. Each vessel was a proven killer, armed with weapons that had ended civilizations. Together, they represented the greatest military force the Dominion had ever assembled. Above the planet, the Siorak floated in patient silence. Admiral Wujin Shin watched the Yelthari fleet approach on his display. He was an old man now, his hair white and his face marked by decades of stress. He had commanded secret missions behind alien lines for 30 years. He had watched friends die to protect humanity's secret. He had ordered good people into danger, knowing they would not return. Now, finally, he could stop hiding. "Admiral," his tactical officer said, "the Yelthari fleet has entered weapons range. They are charging all batteries." Wujin nodded slowly. "Shield status?" "All shields at full power. We can absorb their entire fleet's firepower for approximately 6 hours before needing to vent heat." 6 hours. The Yelthari fleet could fire everything they had for 6 hours, and it would not matter. The technology gap was not large. It was an ocean. "Hold fire," Wujin ordered. "Let them shoot first. Let them see the truth." The Yelthari fleet opened fire. Plasma lances streaked across space, bright as blue lightning. Gravity bombs bent the darkness around them as they flew. Antimatter torpedoes left trails of white fire. Nuclear missiles, railgun rounds, energy beams of every color and type. Everything the Dominion had created over 10,000 years of war poured toward the Siorak in a storm of destruction. The barrage hit the shields and vanished, not deflected, not scattered, simply absorbed. The Siorak drank the attack like a lake drinking rain. Its surface remained unmarked. Its systems showed no strain. Wu Jin watched the energy readings on his display. Shield absorption at 12% capacity. The Yelthari fleet has expended approximately 40% of their total ammunition. His bridge crew remained silent. Some were crying quietly, not from fear, but from the overwhelming realization of what humanity had achieved. All those years of sacrifice, all those lives given in secret. It had worked. "Admiral," the tactical officer said, "Supreme Commander Varth is broadcasting a message. He is demanding our surrender." Wujin almost laughed. "Show me." Varth's face appeared on the screen, twisted with rage and fear. "This is your final warning, humans. Surrender now, or face the full wrath of the Dominion. We will tear your vessel apart and feast on your remains." Wujin leaned forward. "Supreme Commander, You have fired everything you have at us. Our shields are barely touched. I suggest you reconsider your position." Varus screamed something in his native language and cut the communication. "They are preparing another attack run," the tactical officer reported. Wujin sighed. He had hoped to avoid this. Target their flagship only. One shot. Disable their engines and weapons. Use precision gravity manipulation. 0 casualties. Understood, Admiral. A single beam lanced out from the Sea Orc. It was not fire or plasma or any weapon the galaxy had seen before. It was focused gravity, compressed and shaped into a surgical tool. The beam touched Voreth's flagship and the massive vessel simply crumpled. Its armor bent like wet paper. Its weapons folded inward. Its engines died, but the hull remained intact. Life support continued. Escape pods launched safely. Not one Yelthari died. The rest of the fleet froze in terror. "Broadcast on all channels," Wujin said. "This is Admiral Wujin Shin of the Earth vessel Sea Orc. We have disabled your flagship without casualties. We can do the same to your entire fleet. We can do the same to your cities, your stations, your entire civilization. But we choose not to." He stood up and looked directly at the camera. "Humanity does not want war. We do not want revenge. We want only to be treated as equals. Your leaders plan to cage us like animals. Your warriors laughed at our weakness. But we are not weak. We never were. We were patient. There's a difference." Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out. The Korvax Federation sent 40 ships against the Halcyon. All were disabled in seconds. The Trade Consortium tried to flee. The Jiri blocked their escape routes without firing a shot. Every attack was met with overwhelming power and perfect restraint. No planets burned. No cities fell. No revenge was taken for centuries of humiliation. Humanity had the power to destroy the galaxy, and they chose mercy instead. That night, the United Earth Council broadcast a single message to every species in known space. We do not seek empire. We do not seek revenge. We seek only the right to exist as equals. Nothing more, nothing less. The choice of how to respond is yours. The galaxy listened. And for the first time in 10,000 years, the great powers began to understand that strength was not just about destruction, but it was about knowing when not to destroy. 6 months had passed as the 12 ships appeared. The galaxy had changed in ways no one could have predicted. The old empires still existed, but their power had been broken. Not by war or conquest, but by truth. For the first time, the smaller species saw that the great powers were not invincible. They saw that patience and unity could overcome centuries of oppression. They demanded change, and humanity helped them get it. A new charter was written in the Galactic Assembly. No species could be classified as inferior. No world could be partitioned against its people's will. No population could be managed or reduced by outside forces. The hunting ground had become something new, not perfect, but better. Much better. Admiral Taiho Park stood on the observation deck of the Halcyon, watching Earth rise over the moon's gray horizon. The blue planet turned slowly against the black sky, its oceans gleaming in the sunlight. He had spent his entire life protecting that small world from dangers it never knew existed. Now, finally, it was safe. Dr. Minji Han stood beside him. She looked tired but peaceful. Her work was done. 300 years of planning, sacrifice, and secrecy had led to this moment. The weight she had carried her whole life had finally lifted. "Do you think they will ever forgive us?" Taiho asked. "The aliens, I mean. We lied to them for 3 centuries. Minji shook her head. "Forgiveness takes time. Understanding takes longer. But we gave them something valuable today. We showed them that even the weakest can become strong. We showed them that power means nothing without restraint. Maybe someday they will see the lesson instead of the deception. She paused, looking at the earth below. Besides, they were planning to cage us like animals. I do not think we owe them an apology. Taiho laughed. It was the first real laugh he had allowed himself in years. That is fair. On the other side of the moon, a small shuttle landed on the surface. The door opened, and Hanali stepped out, her boots touching lunar dust for the first time. Beside her walked her parents, Sunwoo and Minji, both moving slowly in the low gravity. Hana looked up at the earth, her eyes filled with tears. "It's real," she whispered. "I saw the pictures. I watched the videos. But I never thought it would be so beautiful." Sunwoo put his arm around his daughter. His own eyes were wet. 40 years in the darkness of space, building ships he thought he might never see completed, missing a home he believed he might never return to. And now, here he was, alive, free, looking at the world his parents had died to protect. "Tomorrow we go down to the surface," he said. "I want you to see the ocean. I want you to feel grass under your feet. I want you to taste real food, grown in real soil, under a real sun." Hannah laughed through her tears. "I don't even know how to swim." "Then I will teach you," Minji said, taking her daughter's hand. "Just like my mother taught me before she left for the stars." The family stood together. 3 generations of silent warriors, finally able to rest. In the great hall of the Galactic Assembly, Ambassador Do-hyun Kang took his seat among the representatives. No one laughed at him now. No one made jokes about human pets. The Elthari commander who had mocked him 6 months ago sat quietly in his corner, his pride shattered but his life intact. Do-hyun had argued against harsh punishment for the species that had planned to enslave Earth. Revenge would only breed more hatred. Instead, he pushed for education and cooperation. Slowly, painfully, the galaxy was learning to see humans not as weak prey, but as patient builders. The human delegation proposes new trade agreements, Do-hyun announced to the assembly. Fair terms. Equal partnership. No exploitation. Eye Arbiter Velmos flickered with uncertain colors. The assembly will consider the proposal. Do-hyun smiled, but this time it was a warm smile, not the cold blade he had shown before. Take your time. We are very good at waiting. Aboard the Baekdu, Commander Yoon Ji-yoon addressed her crew for the last time. The great warship was being transformed. Its weapons were being scaled down. Its vast interior was being redesigned. The vessel that had been built for war would now serve as an exploration ship, carrying humanity to the unknown edges of the galaxy. We built these ships for destruction, Yoonji said, her voice echoing through the massive bridge. We prepared for the worst because we had to, but perhaps their greatest purpose will be ensuring we never need to use them again. She looked at the stars on her display, the countless worlds waiting to be discovered. Today, we stop hiding. Today, we stop pretending. Today, we begin a new journey, not as the hunted, but as explorers. Not as the weak, but as equals. The galaxy feared our weapons. Let us show them something better. Let us show them our curiosity, our courage, our hope. The crew cheered. After lifetimes of secrecy and sacrifice, they were finally free to be themselves. That night, celebrations spread across Earth. People danced in the streets of every city. Fireworks lit up the skies from Seoul to Cairo to Buenos Aires. Children who had grown up under the shadow of alien contempt now looked at the stars with wonder instead of fear. In a small park in Bizen, Councilwoman Yuna Choi sat on a bench, watching the fireworks bloom above the ocean. She was older now, her body failing, but her spirit remained strong. A young girl, no more than 5 years old, ran up to her with wide eyes. "Grandmother," the girl said, "is it true that we have ships bigger than planets?" Una smiled and lifted the child onto her lap. Yes, little one. It is true. Why did we build them? Una looked at the stars twinkling between the bursts of color. So that you would never have to be afraid. So that you could grow up free. So that when you look at the sky, you see possibility instead of danger. The girl thought about this for a moment. What will we do now? Una hugged her close. Whatever we want. That is what freedom means. Above them, the 12 great ships hung in orbit like silent guardians. They had been built in darkness and despair. But now they sailed under open stars, symbols of everything humanity had endured and everything humanity could become. The galaxy had learned an uncomfortable truth. The quiet ones, the patient ones, the species they had dismissed and mocked. They were the most dangerous of all. Not because they wanted destruction, but because they knew exactly what they were protecting. Humanity had finally arrived. And the future was theirs to write.